Thick Descriptions disrupts traditional educational methods. And why do we do that? Because we want to help humans thrive where they are, building better communities. One way that we do that is the Elephant in the Room Unboxed, where we give our audience members the tools and the resources to have those uncomfortable conversations and do it in a humane and anthropological way. We're doing this in partnership with Respect Diversity, another organization that is committed to doing the work with us. Each episode will have a different host and a different guest talking about uncomfortable conversations or uncomfortable topics and giving you the resources of how to navigate them. Let's get uncomfortable. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Suzette Chang. I am the founder and CEO of Thick Descriptions, an organization that disrupts traditional educational methods with anthropology. I have the privilege and pleasure of talking to a very cool human being. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then as soon as you introduce yourself, I want to start off with how we met.
Okay.
So go for it.
All right. I am Suzann Wade. I am the owner of Wade Innovation, and I am a company culture coach and creative problem-solving trainer. Which basically means that I teach people how to think through situations, how to use the way that our brain naturally thinks with clarifying, ideating, developing, and implementing when we approach a challenge. Help people understand subconsciously, where do they gravitate toward, where do they get drained by that, and then help them learn how to intentionally follow those steps so that they have the thinking skills to pretty much face any situation that may come up in business or in their personal lives even. I love it. I've been doing it on the side for probably 12 years.
Okay.
Got to do it with the small town of Locust Grove one time. That was amazing.
Wow.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then I've had my own business since 2019.
Okay.
And actually just went through a major relaunch. So
Nice.
that's exciting.
Very
so
cool.
that's what I do. And do you mind if I tell how we met?
Yeah, I do not mind.
Okay.
You go right ahead.
We met when both of us were at Chapel Hill United Methodist Church. And I remember the very first time I met Suzette because my name is Suzanne Danette. And so I walked up to her and I was like, oh, your name is Suzette. This is so awesome. I love you already.
Very
and
cool.
So,
Very cool.
yeah, I remember the very first time we met.
And so I'm glad that you remember that. Unfortunately, my brain does not, but I do remember your impact on my firstborn. So my family and I migrated from the West Coast to Oklahoma 22 years ago. And when we came to this particular space, at that time, there was a lot of opinions and thoughts about how young people should operate. And my firstborn, my daughter, was and still is very passionate, very thought-provoking, and very curious of why do we do things the way we do them, especially if it's not working for everyone.
Right.
And the young humans that the age group that she was in, they all operated in the quote-unquote norms. And here she comes, completely different.
Amazing.
And not not just from an ethnic perspective, but from a cultural and a thinking perspective. Very much of how we operate outside of our home is very similar inside of when there's something that's going on, we sit down and we talk about it and we do our best to get a mutual understanding. And so you were one of maybe a handful of humans at that time that she gravitated to because there were so many that were telling her what she couldn't do because of her age, because of her gender, because of, I don't think they outright said it, but it was inferred because of her ethnicity, because of her non-Oklahoma roots. It was, you don't get to come here and change things. And it was like, I'm not trying to change that. I just don't understand. Yeah. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You are welcome. And I just like background for everybody else. I worked in the ministry for 26 years, predominantly worked with children and youth. And I'm a firm believer that you teach children critical thinking skills like honestly from kindergarten up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the way you do it, but when we would teach, and I wrote curriculum for a long time for churches, and the curriculum that we wrote, and also just in the classroom, it was always encouraging kids to ask why and to understand that there is more, that you have the ability, you have a God-given brain, and that it is okay for you to ask why and to question the adults in your life. You know, that's part of your role. And I loved working with kids because I actually had a mantra that I still kind of follow at the same time, and that's grown-ups are stupid.
Well,
and
yeah.
it's, I mean, I think that adults that act like adults, you know, are, I'm cool with them. But the adults that are like the because I said so kind of adults that like, I'm a grown up, you should just listen to me kind of adults, those people I could not vibe with. And I will say that a lot of times, like, I know I see more adults in the church throw temper tantrums than children.
Right.
So, you know, it's sort of like we need to raise up our children to recognize how amazing they are.
Agreed.
And I have so much faith in the world. I've always had a lot of faith in the world because I've worked with the generations younger than me.
Got it.
You know?
Got it.
And your daughter, oh my gosh.
Yes.
She is amazing.
Yes,
she
is.
has a huge place in my heart and always will.
Yes.
Now, is she in Brazil right now?
She is in Brazil right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw that she was doing that, and I'm like, you go, girl.
Yes.
I love keeping up with her.
Yes. That's a good way to put it. Keeping up with her. Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
Not that I could ever keep pace with her because she is a force of nature.
Yes, she is. That is an excellent way to describe her. She is very much a force of nature and has been that way since she was 3. And so moving to Oklahoma, that was definitely a cultural shift in a variety of ways.
Yes.
Me as a parent and an adult realizing that we were in a different space, not good or bad, just different. And then definitely having those moments of, oh my gosh, how do you enrich a human being that is so accustomed to thinking outside of the box in spaces where the boxes is how we operate,
right? Because
we've always done it this way. So there was definitely a lot of fear going on my end. So again, thank you for being one of those rocks for her. Because it freaked me out. Yeah, it really did. Very grateful for all the opportunities. And let me say this, as it relates to Oklahoma and education, a reason, in my opinion, that Taylor is in Brazil right now is because of the resources here that are available in Oklahoma. Yeah. Not necessarily accessible to all, but definitely. I mean, she learned Latin when she was in junior high school. I mean, and there was no way that could have happened in California. And that's a whole nother podcast.
Exactly.
Whole nother podcast. So you said something as you were speaking about your organization about natural thinking. Unpack that.
Okay. Well, it's sort of like one of the examples that I give to people in terms of when I try to teach them about creative problem solving is like, we'll do things like, I'm going to take my glasses off right now because it's actually easier for me to kind of see up close without them. Okay. But I wear glasses. Yes. And a lot of times I will take them off like I just did. But I need them to see like at a distance that's like down the hallway. Okay. And so I'll be walking along, I'll walk away from them and I'll be walking along and my brain goes, I can't see. Why can't I see? And so that question of why can't I see is a clarifying question.
Got it.
And then my brain starts thinking of all the places they could be. So that's kind of like ideating. Okay. You know? And then it's sort of like, okay, so how am I going to go look to find them? Can I retrace my steps? Where all have I been? That's developing.
Got it.
And then implementing is going and doing it.
Got it.
And The other part, the part of implementing that I love the most is after I found them, that question that can go through my head of what can I do that I don't have to do this
Again.
8,000 times a day, you know? And so I think that there are places that I have, like when I go to bed at night, I'll intentionally go put my glasses by my pills for the morning, so that I don't have to look for them in the morning as much. So that's what I mean by natural thinking. It's sort of like just the way our brains sort of intuitively think through things.
Got it.
Now, I say that, and we're also here to talk about like neurodivergence and invisible disabilities. So, you know, it's the typical, I should say, more than natural, the typical way of thinking. And so different parts of our brain control different things. Like the brain, we think we understand the brain. We know about as much about the brain as we do about the oceans of the world.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, that is how complex it really is. I kind of wander around just to give everybody out there an understanding of my experience. I was what we call neurotypical up until the age of 28.
Okay.
And I was diagnosed with brain cancer.
Okay.
The way I was diagnosed with brain cancer is I lost my eyesight. I lost my central vision, and it was from a separate neurological condition. Wow. I was like written up in papers. Wow. My stuff was like so odd, but I had this separate neurological condition that I stopped draining the spinal fluid, the fluid from my brain into my spine. So the brain fluid was backing up. Wow. So I had this pressure, and the pressure squeezed my optic nerves to the point that the ends of my optic nerves swelled up. Okay. So we all have natural blind spots. Right. And so that just meant that my natural blind spots were bigger. Magnified, so that all of my central vision was gone. And my right eye pointed towards my nose. Wow. So I only had peripheral vision. Oh, wow. But I had peripheral vision that was in front of me, and then peripheral vision that was to the side of me. And my force of nature daughter, Maddie, she was 2 at the time. She was a toddler. And so, like, I would have to, like, slap my legs like you do with a dog to get her to come and grab my legs. So I knew which Madeline was the Madeline I needed to pick up, because I had 2 of them that I was seeing. So, but they did the MRI to see what was going on, because my ophthalmologist was like, she's like, I know what you have. This is the classic condition. This is pseudotumor cerebri, but we have to do the MRI just to make sure. And when they did the MRI, they found a non-symptomatic brain tumor. So it was not causing the problem. They put me on medication for pseudotumor cerebri. In about 4 months, I had most of my central vision back. I still had some double vision for a while. Okay. But when I was 28, I went through a whole journey that was a long journey with my brain cancer. Many stories that could be told there, but finally wound up at a brain tumor center. And I will say this, if anybody out there listening knows anybody with a brain tumor, get to a brain tumor center, because the doctors that are there, all they deal with is brain tumors. Got it. They don't deal with anything else. So your neurosurgeons every week, all they're doing is they're doing surgery on brain tumors. Okay. That's it. Okay. And so that saved my life, getting to a brain tumor center in San Francisco. But I had a craniotomy resection of my brain tumor, and so they removed it. And so I have a golf ball size hole in the right semiparietal part of my brain. Wow. So if you see my MRI, there's like this big old hole that takes up a
You've
good...
You've posted a few pictures, yes.
I posted a lot, and you know, this is actually May, when we're recording this, is Brain Cancer Awareness Month, Brain Tumor Awareness Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, pretty much all things brain. You can, like, this is the awareness month for that. And also Foster Care Awareness Month, which that's very close to my heart too. Wow. But I, after my brain surgery, when I was going in for my brain surgery, I remember I wasn't really afraid of dying. I don't know why. I think just because I thought, well, it will be done, but I was super afraid of waking up different.
Got it.
And I thought, like, for the longest time, I thought, okay, well, I really didn't, I did wake up. My brain had to rewire how to process all my senses because what they removed, there were a lot of sensory processing portions of the brain that were removed. So I remember it took a few days for me to get my sight back fully.
Okay.
I woke up when I was first woke up, I had a nurse at my feet and a nurse at my head. And I was in a very little small space. And so I don't remember a lot. I just remember them being there. And I remember when Dr. Berger, my surgeon, he was one of the top neurosurgeons in the world. Oh my gosh. Amazing man. And so he came in, and the only question I had for them at that point was, can I have a Sprite? Because my surgery had been 8 hours long.
Wow.
I was in the ICU that night, and it was all really dark, and so I didn't really realize what I could see and what I couldn't see. And then the next day, I woke up in a room, and there was a giant picture window beside my bed, and it was white. But we were in San Francisco, so I'm like, it's foggy. The morning after that, I wake up, and there's an office building, there's the San Francisco Bay, there's the Golden Gate Bridge, all these things that I can see from my window, from my bed. And so I said to my mom, I was like, was it really foggy yesterday? And she said, no, it was bright, sunshiny.
Wow.
So Dr. Berger walks in later, and I'm like, okay, so this has happened. And he goes, oh, yeah, that happens. It just took your brain a while to rewire how to process what your eyes were seeing. And the reality is there are dozens of different parts of our brain that are involved in eyesight. We think it's our eyes and then our occipital lobe. No. But there are so many different things you can have in your brain.
Correct.
That can be going on that affect your eyesight.
That's correct. And I would even argue from an anthropological perspective, all the other senses as well.
Yes, every sense, you know, it is. And so it's just like that. Our brain is so complex.
Correct.
But a lot of things, sensory wise, it took a while for them to come back. And even now I've had to do a lot of work in terms of visual processing. I do visual processing exercises just because it's a deficit. And it took me, I think for 7 years, I really thought, I'll get back to. I'll get back to what it was. And it was about after the 7th year that I was like, you have a brain injury. Right. And so it kind of, then I realized, I've come to realize I'm neurodivergent, but I am in a unique position because I also experienced a neurotypical life. Right. And my frontal lobe was not affected at all. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So, thank you for unpacking that. And as it relates to natural thinking, how do you think that cultural experiences impact that?
I think in a way, cultural experiences, I would say contemporary Western culture actually is discouraged from that creative problem-solving process that is somewhat intuitive. I think because we treat knowledge and retaining knowledge as being the biggest priority. And it's always interesting to me how in early childhood education, I love early childhood education, but in early childhood education, there is such a focus on getting children to engage, encouraging them to be creative, working out their own problems, how to navigate the world around them. And then it gets to they hit, it's actually hitting in kindergarten now sometimes that it's okay, sit still. You got to sit down. You got to sit still. Here's what you have to remember. It's regurgitation. Exactly. And so that like creative problem solving muscle that is kind of intuitive, that's part of our evolutionary survival,
Good
I would
point.
argue, you
Very
know?
good point.
We sort of stamp that down.
Right.
And then it's like you hit adulthood.
Right.
And it's like, okay, now you have to have all the skills again.
Right.
Right. So
right.
it's one of those things that it frustrates me. You know, I think so. Does that answer kind of what you were saying?
It does. It does. And it sounds as though you are advocating personally and professionally that there are different ways that all of us learn, and that here in the United States, for example, we have enough resources to provide those accommodations.
We do. And I think, you know, I mean, I think, for example, even like before we get to accommodations and invisible disabilities, you know, his name is escaping me.
Okay. It'll come to you.
It'll come to me. But basically, he's the one that developed the multiple intelligences. And initially, I think there were like 6, but I think we're up to like 9 now. Just the different ways in which each of us learn best,
right.
You know, what resonates with us. So like, right. You know, musical learning style or, you know, auditory, you know, being able to reflect with yourself. The words are really escaping me right now. Or
fine.
The interrelationship with one another, or nature, you know? I mean, all the ways in which our brains learn,
right,
and retain information. And
right.
and I will say, in all honesty, this is like one of those things when you've looked at what do any of us really remember? And the only thing that has a 100% success rate is experience. And that's one of the reasons that when I wrote the curriculum I did, it was based on experiential learning. And it also used those multiple intelligences. So we would like study the same thing for multiple weeks in different rooms, you know, cooking, music, story, games, you know, all these different things that we would do just to, and it was experiencing,
right, having
those experiences connected to the story. And so the thing is, those kids remember the experience.
Right.
You know, one of the great things, one of the perfect stories for this is like, you could, if you have like a gravel hill and your child has a bicycle and there's a gravel hill by your house, you can tell them, you can draw a picture for them. You can sing it to them. You can do a little mock experiment with them in the house with little playthings about don't ride down the gravel hill on your bicycle. But it really isn't until they ride down the gravel hill on their bicycle and they like spin out and wind up having all these like gravel bruises that they remember. Oh, that's not good, you know? So it's not that like I'm advocating your kids go do dangerous things, you know? But it's sort of like that experience is what we remember. And so I think looking at how can we have more experiential learnings. And the thing that I love is when I do what I do with people, with individuals or with teams, there is an experience where we actually go through the process together of looking at something together and experiencing how can you use this thinking intentionally so that they can get an understanding of it. So.
And you are speaking, as you were talking, I was thinking of, again, personal and professional, of those times where individuals, be it within my family or outside, because of historical factors, the fear of allowing their offspring to experience something typically meant that child's death. And so, for right or wrong, there was this protective shield or protective mechanism that was created. And even, and I would say even tongue in cheek in some spaces of, not only do we want to protect you from dying, you just don't do that. Just do as you're told.
Right.
Which again, I get it. It's just helping different communities and cultures to understand that in some spaces, you don't have to do that.
Yes. Right. And it's about creating safe spaces.
Right.
Where that can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
It gets a little sticky, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but it does take a lot of intentional work. You know, I mean, that's why I like, especially in the last, yesterday was 3 years since George Floyd was murdered.
Yes.
And so I feel like, especially in the last 3 years, the way that our, I'm white for the people who aren't seeing this, but the way that our Black brothers and sisters kind of spoke grace into us and said, hey, we need to, the focus needs to be on anti-racism. The focus needs to be on how do we restructure things? How do we really recognize that our, Black parents have to have the talk with their children. I do not have to have the talk with my kids. I mean, the talk I had to have with my kids was a very different one.
Correct.
It was a birds and bees one.
Correct.
Which you guys have to have that one on top of the
Correct.
other.
Correct.
But
and that ties into those historic and contemporary cultural understandings and experiences.
Yes.
Not too long ago, had the privilege of doing an interview with Toon, who is part of the Asian community here in Oklahoma City. And he really began to unpack the significance of being polite in his community, and how that although that it has its historic and cultural influences, at the same time it has its challenges as well, because then there's this assumption that this community will not do, they will not push against certain systems because that's just not how they operate. Right. And so, a reason I bring this up, I want this conversation to speak to as many different cultural experiences as possible. Understanding that we are humans and there are certain things that we experience as human beings, and we have our experiences. Right. And you bringing up George Floyd, so thank you for bringing that up. The unfortunate news is that a human being lost their life. Exactly. The great news is it brought awareness in a way that no human being, unless you are under a rock, could say that you don't know that there are certain human rights that are not being honored. Yes. And I am confident that could go to our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters, that could go to people that live in other countries, on other continents. The list goes on and on and on. Part of what Thick Descriptions is very committed to is helping people understand that there is our humanity and our experiences. Right. And for some spaces, in order for us to understand that we're all human beings, most if not all of us have to learn each other's experiences. Yeah. Good, bad, or indifferent. Right. It's the truth. It is the truth. It's the truth. It's not, it's fact. It's not, there's not judgment. No. It's just fact. No. And I think that's one of the things that, as a neurodiverse woman, my son is neurodivergent. I am actually his third mom. He is so okay with me talking about this. He and I both firmly believe that our experiences, it's okay to share with people because we want people to learn. Right. And so he was born with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder because his mother drank when she was pregnant with him. Okay. His birth mom did. And just so you know, there is no amount of safe alcohol that you can consume when you're pregnant. Because whatever alcohol you consume, whatever is forming within the fetus that day will be impacted by it. Got it. So he has, he has a spectrum disorder, and we're familiar with that term, but actually fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is by far the most common spectrum disorder that is out there. Okay.
but it's the least understood. And we have the least amount of resources that are going toward it, in large part because I think there's a blame that's put on the biomoms
Right.
when there really
Right.
shouldn't be, you
Right.
know? But it means that he doesn't have very well developed executive functioning skills.
Okay.
And
when you say executive functioning, that means
is the kind of thing like being able to see the consequences to your actions.
Okay.
You know, he cannot think, if I do this, then that is going to happen.
Cause and effect.
And so that is even in like positive directions. Like I know with our daughter, we would be able to use like incentives, you know, and like rewards. I mean, like I remember when we were potty training her and we had like a sticker chart and, you know, little like treats that she could get and that sort of thing.
Right.
That sort of, when you have executive function delay, that sort of, okay, there's a positive.
Right.
And he's 22 now. So some of that stuff is like coming together finally for him.
Okay.
But it is, you know, it can happen eventually.
Right.
But it's still delayed.
Got it.
You know, and it always will be delayed. And so like things like understanding finances, you know, that's going to be one that will probably always be a challenge for him.
Got it.
And also he would do something that's called confabulation, where it's sort of like it's the reality that's inside his mind can be, it's hard to distinguish that from reality around him.
Got it.
You know, so it wasn't so much that he would lie in essence. He would just sort of make up what was happening in his own mind. People with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder will say pretty much anything in order to make the person happy. If they think, this will get me out of the situation. So there is, you know, we don't like to admit this, but there are quite a few people that are in prison who have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
Got it.
And so if they were on the periphery of something, even if they had gotten talked into doing something, and they're sitting across the table from, you know, a police officer who's putting the pressure on them, it is not unheard of. You know, that's why there was one time we had a house fire. It started in Sean's room. The investigator went in and, you know, it was just an accidental fire. But when the investigator was in there, we didn't know what he was going to come out with. And so I looked at Sean and I had to take Sean over to the corner of the lawn across the street. And I said, okay, here's the thing. I said, if a police officer shows up, there is only one word you were allowed to say to that person, and it's lawyer. Because, you know, it's just that kind of thing. And that's what we don't realize about neurodivergence and the accommodations that are available, be it in school, be it in the justice system. They're just not there like they should be because there's not even the awareness there.
True.
You know,
very true.
we look at people, and that's why I call it invisible disabilities. You look at Sean, you talk to Sean. Sean can carry on amazing conversations. He's a very smart kid. He knows lots of stuff. You wouldn't know.
Right.
You know, people talk to me, and I'm pretty darn intelligent. I will say that about myself. I'm pretty dynamic. I'm a great speaker. I stumble some, and I, you know, have problems with words. But I just keep on going, even when I do. So people don't know.
Right.
But it presents such challenges on a daily basis. And so the ability to access accommodations needs to be something that is so prevalent. And when we were talking about other cultures too, I mean, I know with me with Sean, and then I have a good friend who's one of her sons has autism. And, you know, she had the situation one time where he was doing something in the front yard that somebody called the authorities about. And she said in that moment, she said, I just thank God that I mean, she was like, I had to get in between him and the police officer.
Wow.
And she was like, I can't imagine how it would have gone.
In a different experience.
In a different experience, you know?
Right.
So,
So I want to lean in a little bit in invisible disabilities. So my background is in education, anthropology, and many moons ago, for a while in different spaces, I had the privilege of being a job coach, and working with humans that have visual and other disabilities. And from a social capital perspective, I learned quickly that when I would say the word disability, people already had stereotyped in their mind what that would look like and what it would mean. So from a very, and this ties in what you said earlier, a very broad spectrum of disabilities. Some obviously are visual, some are not, meaning not meaning you are visually impaired, meaning a sighted person can see you.
Right.
And if it is not quote unquote visible, then there's an assumption that there is not a disability.
Exactly.
And as it relates to that word disability, it just held so much weight, as if that human being that has different abilities, because they have a quote unquote disability, therefore they can't do certain or anything. It's almost like they should be institutionalized. They should be put in some space where they are not seen or heard. And my background working with people with different abilities is probably about 30 plus years. And to hear you say, so come back to what you said of invisible disabilities, I am really rethinking of bringing that word back, because it appears, and this is where the question, it appears that disabilities doesn't have that social weight like it did 30 plus years ago.
Well, yeah. And I think part of that is in large part thanks to the ADA. And so the world was forced to be accommodating of disabilities. And so I think I hang my hat on that word.
Got it.
Because the ADA and my having a disability prevented me from getting fired at one point in my life.
Got it.
Because I had a senior minister who was very irritated that I would ask as many questions as I asked, and that I needed to have things in writing, you know, and so got very upset with me, and I'd already torqued him out because I had advocated that women should be paid the same amount as men. So I had already put a target on my back.
Right.
But yeah, I had to print out all the things about how, supervising someone with a brain injury and take it in and say, okay, you know what? Here, I am protected by the American Disabilities Act.
Right.
And here are the reasons why. Because I can't. There are a lot of things I can't do.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
We're raised with, and I think to speak to what you were talking about, we're raised with this view that can't is a 4-letter word.
Right.
Well, it's not. It's a contraction of a 6-letter word.
Right.
So it's to say I can't is just a statement of fact.
Correct.
So I have in building my business, I am very upfront with everybody that I work with. Hi, I have a brain injury, and that is a huge asset to you. But it also means there are some things that some days I can't do. If we have a major drop in barometric pressure, the fluid in my brain is a barometer. And so it will knock me down. I can't control that.
Right.
So I literally have built a company that works for somebody with a brain injury.
Right.
And I used to live, and I really have to give a shout out to a couple of my friends that my friend Danielle and my friend Danielle Throckmorton. She's a business strategist who's here in Oklahoma. But she really built a community of very supportive women. And so when I stepped into that community, they were like, what you think is your weakness is actually your superpower,
right.
And so I think that, that's the thing, recognizing that I have a disability, Sean has a disability, but both of us, our disabilities are actually our superpowers. Sean's capacity for empathy is out of this world. And also, he's had some early childhood neglect. So, when little brains are developing, that survival part of your brain develops no matter what. Right. And so that developed, and like his language and other parts didn't develop as much. Right. But he can read any situation like that. And he can he's one of those people that if you dropped him in the middle of Alaska, he would survive. I mean, he would know how to survive. So it's the people who are neurodivergent. I think my big soapbox that I stand on is if we made as many spaces as possible, as accommodating for as many neurodivergencies as possible, it would be a lot more fun for all of us.
Understood.
Because there are so many things that we can learn. Right. That are also ways in which our brain works. Like for me, my sensory processing is now rooted through the same part of my brain that my language skills are rooted through. So that means it's hard for me to listen or talk when I'm distracted by other stuff, which is why it's better if I take off my glasses because I can focus a little better. Got it. And so I can't turn my senses off. Yeah. And that's one of those things that you don't understand, when you have a neurotypical brain that's intact, is we can kind of quiet down our senses. But for me, if I have a tag that is scratchy, my brain will go scratchy tag, scratchy tag, scratchy tag.
And it's not going to stop until you address.
It's not going to stop.
Right.
Right. And the thing that is difficult, I have a really good friend who's been neurodiverse. She had a brain bleed when she was a toddler. So almost all of her life. And one of the things is people will say to her, she'll talk about how her clothes being so distracting, and people will be like, oh, I have that too. And she's like, that's not helpful because, if they say, oh, I have that too, that makes her think, well, if you have that too, then why am I so immobilized by it?
But it sounds as though all of this is tied to educating and us being willing to learn from each other and learn how to disrupt the way we've been doing things. Understand that everything has a purpose and a place, and to be completely fair and transparent. I am confident there was a time where, for example, our current education systems worked. It's not working now.
It's not working now.
Right. Yeah. And that requires all of us to step back, or at least I believe all of us, or as many as possible, to step back and look and think, how is this working for our younger folks? How is this working for our tweens and teens? And that's a really struggling, that's a hard time transitioning from tweens to teenagers. Understanding that there's a huge difference between teenagers and new adulting. Understanding that just because you're 18 does not mean you're legally adult, but the maturity level is still pending in most, if not all of us. Yeah. And then just for adults, be it adults in my age, seasoned adults, and so on, the way we have done things, maybe it did work. It's just time to step back and say, let's rethink this.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, it's about looking at each person and saying, what would work better for you?
Right.
How could we make this work better for you?
Right.
And I think that's kind of one of the approaches that I love and I have. There was somewhere around, I don't know when it was, maybe around 2003, 2004, where I was reading Genesis, and there was a verse that hit me differently. And it was like, let us create humankind in our own image of God, in our own image. In the image of God, God created them. Male and female, God created them. And the way it hit me was, every single person I encounter in my life is created in the image of God. That means they have something to teach me.
Right.
And,
Agreed.
And so I think if we like looked at it that way, because that's why like every kid I ever worked with taught me something.
Agreed.
And I think if we can just approach one another from that perspective.
Agreed. Agreed. And I would even say not just kids, adults too.
Adults too. Yeah. Every single, I mean, yeah.
In my mind, personally and professionally, if I'm not learning something every day, there's a problem.
Right. And it's
a me problem. It's a me problem.
You know,
Agreed.
because that's the thing I love. There is not a person I have ever met that I have not learned something from. And I do make the joke that sometimes what I learn from that person is, wow, God's love is really big, that I know God loves you.
Very cool. Very cool. Anything else you want to add as we are wrapping up this very cool podcast?
I think the biggest thing I would recommend for people is we have such a strong desire to connect that sometimes in the goal of trying to connect, we'll say, oh, I understand.
Correct.
And none of us does.
Agreed.
Nobody can understand what you've been through.
Correct.
Or what I've been through.
Correct.
And so I think that it's just about listening and saying, oh my goodness, or asking questions, you know? Don't try to understand.
Agreed. Well said. Well said.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening as we disrupt traditional educational methods with anthropology. Let's get uncomfortable. Thank you for listening to Thick Descriptions Elephant in the Room Unboxed. Want to learn more about us, what we're doing to disrupt traditional educational methods? Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. thickdescriptions.org, 405-397-0584.